2 Thunderbirds F-16s? Why 2? That's pretty simple. Sometimes I'm not that smart, and neither are my friends. What's up, everybody? You're watching Model Aviator. My name's Adam, and yes, we have not one but 2 of the E-flite 70mm F-16 Thunderbirds sitting on the bench. Now, this airplane's been out for quite some time. We just thought we'd do a review and give you our take on it. It is a high alpha monster right out of the box. We will get into the review of the F-16 and show you some pretty cool footage, but before we do that, let's kind of explain by showing you a very short little film that explains exactly why there are 2 sitting here. And to set this up, just know that the idea that my buddy Steve and I came up with was we were going to do some formation high alpha. Check this out. Alright, what's up? So you saw the 2 F-16s. This is my buddy Steve. And we're about to do something that we think sounds really cool, but may just end up being really stupid.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. So how do you want to do this? You want to lead, or do you want to be the wingman? I'm comfortable with either.
Let's switch it up and we'll see which one works best.
So how do you want to start?
Well, it's your channel. You lead.
Okay, all right. So I'll start out leading. So you want to try to take off together and come around. We'll come around here and then get into high alpha there and make the left turn in and come across?
Yeah, and then we'll switch it, and then
okay. Yeah.
I'll lead and you follow.
Yeah.
We'll just do 2
So we can just call it in the air while we're doing it. Okay.
I like it.
All right, cool. Turn out. We're still getting warmed up here. Was a little harder to get close than we thought it would be. Bear in mind, Steve and I have never flown formation in any capacity before together. We've flown together a lot, but never formation. So, to be honest, this was sketch right from the start.
Keep it in high alpha low like this.
Yeah, and I'll get to you.
At this point, Steve has now taken the lead, and I'm going to be the wingman and try to get to him. He's a good bit ahead of me, so I'm just going to cut it pretty short and tight right here. And now it's looking pretty good until it isn't.
Oh no! Well, we thought that might happen, and it did. Didn't toast the battery, at least.
Yeah.
Hatch is in good shape. Nose cone's in good shape. I just need the rest of it.
Little epoxy and you're good, right?
All right. Well.
Shoot.
It was really looking good there for a minute.
It was fun. I'd say
it was it was good while it lasted. We said that this might end up being stupid, and it was, but there you go. I'm gonna go order another one of these. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So there you have it. Basically, that worked out kind of like a nasty rash. So anyway, I did exactly what I said I was going to do in that video and ordered a brand spanking new one. That's this one. Unbeknownst to me, at the time that I said that, Steve wanted to try his hand at fixing the original one, and that is this one. So now we have a Challenge F-16. We call it the Challenge Viper. We're going to do some model aviator challenges where we do some skill challenges amongst some different pilots, and this is one of the airplanes that we're going to use to do that. Should be a lot of fun. You'll see a lot more of that later. But for now, we're going to get to the review of the E-flite 70mm Thunderbirds F-16. When we received our F-16s, both of them now, all the parts were in perfect condition. They shipped it really, really well, packed it really, really well, had no issues with any of that. The assembly is a pretty easy assembly with these airplanes. There's 4 bolts, 2 per wing, and then you glue on your vertical, your horizontals, and your ventral fins. That's pretty much it. Program it in your transmitter and you are absolutely ready to go. And by the way, here at Model Aviator, we kind of prefer to just set up pure airframes, see how good we can get an airframe to fly without stabilization. Gyros are not something that we typically use very much, although I've flown gyros that I liked. Most annoy me. I will tell you that we are rocking the AS3X in these F-16s. I have flown one without it and put that airplane into high alpha, and it is nothing but work without the AS3X on. Obviously it can be done, but you are busy. With the AS3X, these airplanes are a no-brainer. They are so easy to high alpha. We'll talk a little bit about that in the flight footage and in the sum up. This is an airplane that I absolutely recommend, the AS3X, because I think that is an integral part of what makes this airplane so great. It is a high alpha monster right out of the box with its high aspect ratio wing, with the gyro making a lot of correction for you and making that much, much easier. It's just fun to do. It is fun rather than being work. So we are rocking the AS3X in these. So what do we like? What do we dislike? What changes did we make? I'm going to go in a little different order. I'm going to tell you what I don't like first, what I like, and then the changes that we made. There's not much not to like about these airplanes, to be honest. I'm going to nitpick here. There's 2 things that kind of annoy me with this airplane. The first thing is the landing gear. While they are pretty doggone tough retracts, they do have some suspension. They have a funky little tendency. Both these airplanes do this. My buddy Steve, that you saw, his airplane does this. My buddy Dustin's got one that does this. I've got another buddy, Ethan, and his does this. For some odd reason, when you go to fly your airplane, when you plug this in, if you cycle the gear, just get it started and flip it back. You don't even have to let it fully cycle. Just flip the switch once and you take off, all the gear go up, perfect. If you don't do that, when you take off, just the main gear goes up, the nose gear doesn't. You flip it again and everything goes up. Makes no sense. It's the funkiest thing I've ever seen. Every time that you cycle it, that little quick cycle before you take off, everything's moving. But if you don't do that after you take off, for some reason, at least on those 5 airplanes, that's a tendency. If 5 of them do it, the nose won't come up. So I just thought that was kind of weird. It's not that big of a deal while you're carrying the airplane. Flip the switch and cycle them real quick and take off, but it shouldn't do that. The other thing that I didn't like was the short battery lead. You can see here that the battery lead just barely comes out. The F-16, this one, is very balance sensitive. If the airplane's nose heavy, it's very hard to get a smooth rotation on takeoff. It leaps into the air. Doesn't matter how much finesse that you try to give it. I had this thing on literally 1,000-foot long perfect paved runway, and with the battery forward, because of that short plug, I could not get it to do a nice smooth rotation. It leapt in the air every time, no matter how much I tried to finesse it. And I'm pretty good at that. So I think it was because it was nose heavy. Well, actually, I'm positive that it was nose heavy. Because of that short lead, you are forced to put the battery a little bit forward and give yourself room for the wires on the battery. They've got to have some place to go. So I'm not crazy about that. That's one of the changes we made, but we'll get to that. So now that I've told you the two things that annoy me, let's talk about what I like. Well, the first thing is the AS3X. And it's really funny, even to me, to hear me say that, because I'm not crazy about AS3X, and it's not Horizon Hobby or AS3X in particular. I'm just not a gigantic fan of gyros in general. I've flown very few that didn't annoy me. I have flown a couple of E-flite airplanes with AS3X in them out of the box lately that I thought were really good. And that surprised me. They're getting better at getting the gains where I think they should be out of the box. With the F-16, I love the fact that the AS3X just happens to be set up perfectly for what I really like to do with this airplane, which is high alpha. That's just so much fun. When you go fast, you can tell that it's there, or at least I can tell that it's there, especially if I do a really fast roll and abrupt stop. You can see that little gyro bump where the gyro is going, oh crap, he stopped. It's a dead giveaway that there's a gyro there. But I love high alphaing it so much that I just don't care. I have to say that in this airplane, I really like the AS3X, so that's saying something. The other thing I like is how much power this F-16 has. There's a ton of cheer holes, if you will, a lot of intake so that this EDF is really efficient for its size. It makes a lot of power. You will see in the flying footage that this airplane has the power to accelerate out of very, very high alpha is a vulnerable position. And to be able to, upright or inverted, frankly, hammer that throttle and at that high angle of attack just accelerate out of there, that's pretty impressive power, especially when you consider that we're at a low altitude here in Georgia, but it's a much higher density altitude because it is really hot and it is really, really humid here. Just a really, really good performing airplane. So I love that. I love the way that it looks. At least who that's an American that doesn't like the Thunderbirds, and I'm sure a lot of you folks from across the pond and other places in the world, I mean, how can you not like the Thunderbirds or the Red Arrows or the Blue Angels or any aerobatic team? I love that it pays tribute to the men and women that make stuff like this happen. That is awesome. The changes we made, pretty simple. Only two. The first one, we soldered up an extension for that goofy short plug so we could get our battery all the way back where we wanted it. We're flying these airplanes on a Pulse 3700. That's a fairly light 6S pack, and believe it or not, flying the airplane the way we're flying it, we get a solid 4-minute flight time, which for an EDF flying it the way we're flying it, 4 minutes is not bad, especially with a smaller 6L, to be quite honest. So that had to be changed to be able to get more weight back. And the other change that we made is, again, to get the balance more towards the rear, or not really more towards the rear, just where I think it should be. I've done a lot of testing with this one, with the Challenge airplane, because I can afford to test it, take risk with it, go too far, and I did go too far with the tail weight and had to come back off of it. What I found is that an ounce of weight, and you'll see here where we put our weight, you could do it differently, I'm sure, or maybe more efficiently than I did. I just was trying to get the airplane to fly the way I wanted it to fly. I wanted it to take off better. I wanted to see if I could make it high alpha just a little better than it did out of the box, which it does great out of the box. But with the balance where it's supposed to be, it does really great. It takes off great. You can get a smooth takeoff. High alpha's great. You'll see our setup page before we go to the flying, which is coming up next. You'll see where our balance is. I think that's the perfect place for this airplane. It does not have an adverse effect on any of the flight performance. Having that battery where we're putting it, and the ounce of weight in the back really makes the airplane fly good. I now have this one set up identical to this. It flies exactly like it, very consistent across the board. So with that, let's just get to the flying. You're going to see some pretty impressive, cool stuff here that we shot over the course of several months. Believe it or not, the crash footage that you saw, that was shot in early April. It has taken a while for us to schedule with weather and all the things that we had happening, other airplanes coming in that we needed to kind of bump up ahead of this and get out. They were time sensitive because they're new airplanes and we want to try and get new airplane videos out. Anyway, we're glad to finally bring this to you. This is some awesome flying footage. Check this out and we'll see you back here to sum this bad boy up. To transition to high alpha, the way I like to do it is to get the F-16 slow power off, feeding in up elevator until I reach full up elevator with the fuselage straight. At that point, it goes into essentially an elevator and just drops straight down, and then I control my altitude and my pitch angle with power. I steer with rudder and control the bank angle with opposite aileron input. While high alpha flight is definitely a more advanced maneuver, I find putting this particular F-16 in high alpha is about half as hard as putting a good 3D plane in a Harrier. This for me is where the F-16 really shines. The AS3X really is set well for this airplane. It's so stable in high alpha, very predictable, really builds confidence with this particular maneuver. This is the power I was talking about. To be able to just transition in that nose high, high alpha attitude into a climb in the same direction without having to lower the nose
and let speed build. That's pretty impressive. This is actually a missed approach. I'm a little too hot, a little too high. So I do an old school trick and turn it into a dirty roll and pretend I meant to do all that. I get this approach right. Stick around, we got some pretty cool bonus footage for you. And we'll start with a smoking minimum radius turn inside the circumference of the trees. We shot a few of these to get this one. And yes, the Thunderbirds F-16 will high alpha invert it pretty well, actually. On this attempt, I got as low as I was hoping to be able to get. And then took the opportunity on the backside to demonstrate that the F-16's got enough power to come right out of it at the same angle of attack as your alpha, even inverted. I had this flower idea in mind for the F-16 when I bought mine back in February. Didn't turn out to be as epic as I thought it would be, but still pretty cool.
I've said it before, and I'm going to do it again. The flying speaks volumes. It's such a capable airplane. It is so docile where you want it to be docile, and yet so capable where you want it to be aggressive and capable. I can't say enough about this airplane. I absolutely love it. It is one of my favorite airplanes to fly in the hangar right now. One of these goes to the field with me a lot, and that's really saying something. So just to sum up from start to finish really quick, the build, simple. There's a little bit more gluing to do than normal, but everything fits perfectly, and you can't put the wrong thing in the wrong place. Little Yoo-hoo pour, little foam tack, you're good to go. Setting it up is easy. You can set it up by the book, and it will do a lot of what you saw us do. Now when it comes to our setup, it's a little bit more aggressive. We've got a little bit more elevator and a little bit more rudder than the book calls for to get that. We did make some mechanical adjustments as you saw on the setup page, but that did not have an adverse effect on how the AS3 corrects at speed, which is nice. That means they've got the gains low enough so that we didn't affect things. I like that. So obviously it's not a beginner's airplane. I don't think any sport jet really is, or sport scale jet. I think an intermediate pilot that's flown something that is reasonably aerobatic and pretty doggone responsive will not have a problem with this. You'll be able to make the adjustment in speed. It will cover ground faster than what you're used to, but you'll get used to that. The one thing I will say about this being a first EDF for someone is that the ground handling, you have to kind of pay attention to what you're doing. It has narrow gear, and that main gear is in close proximity to the nose gear. What that means is that this airplane is really tippy, especially on a smooth surface. If you make big corrections, you can get the tips into the ground and scrape your stuff up. When the airplane gets to the end of the runway and you are slowing down, you want to make sure it gets almost to a stop before you do that 180, or you will put it on its tip. One of the things that I think you can do to prevent a lot of that, the nose wheel push rod is hooked to a quick connect. You can stick a driver through a little hole into that quick connect, loosen it up, and adjust the nose wheel. Take the time to get the nose wheel adjusted so that this thing tracks straight, and you won't have to make a lot of corrections at speed, taking off or landing right after you've landed, where it will get you in the most trouble and do the most damage. So yeah, it would make a great first EDF, but you just need to be mindful of the ground handling so you don't scrape your tips up. Other than that, I think it will appeal to a much broader spectrum than as a first EDF. Obviously, I'm a pretty advanced pilot, and I absolutely am having a blast with this. I got some buddies that are purely 3D pilots. It's all they do, and they think EDFs are boring. I think they would actually really like this. They'd be able to high alpha this thing right out of the box first day, just like I did, no problem. They'd be doing inverted high alpha, and I think it would be something that would intrigue a 3D pilot. So really broad spectrum of pilots that I think might like this. Obviously, if you are a jet person and you got a hangar full of jets, EDFs, or turbines, you need to add one of these to your collection. For the price point, it's really a good deal, and you won't regret it. So that said, obviously, it's a big yes for us here at Model Aviator. We love this thing so much, we bought two. So yeah, I don't know what more I can say about it as to how great it is that says more than that. I doinked one and immediately knew, that I was going to order another one. I was having that much fun with it. That's just all there is to it. So there you go. If you decide that you want one, there will be a link in the description that will take you to the page where you can find the F-16 at Horizon Hobby. We're just making it easy for you if you want to do that. We appreciate you watching. Hope this has been helpful. Hope it's been entertaining and you liked it. So I'm going to quote my buddy Martin from across the pond. I'm going to say, stay safe and well. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And hopefully, we'll see you next week. Take it easy.